when you think about the different sports, it's not just about performance. If you think about golf, that may be the quintessential sport in which money makes a difference, where equipment really, there's a great deal of money that goes into developing the appropriate drivers, into appropriate balls and that sort of thing. And we're not just talking about the dimples on it. We mean there's serious money that's invested here. But that's basically because the rules allow it. In a lot of sports, there are, if you look at the rules of Major League Baseball, they're actually quite vague. But different governing bodies will basically lock down the sport. And when you think about the people who like baseball still, it's still being played, they tend to be traditionalist, and the ball has changed very little over 50 years. I think its location where it's made has changed. But it's still got the exact same composition. The yarn is wound still the exact same number of times. There's still 216 stitches on it. That stuff will never change. And so there are two competing things, right? One is performance-based. I also believe, and maybe someone can correct me here, but I know that the college ball, the basketball in college, went from natural leather to synthetic, and I think a lot of animal rights activists take credit for this. They've lobbied all these professional sports to do this, but largely that's performance-based, and it's actually a lot easier to manufacture, and you can get a much more consistent bounce. And people talk about the bounce a lot in basketball, but if you talk to a very good basketball player, the release is very important. That grip that they feel as it rolls out of the fingertips, that's sort of the backspin that they put. So I think one is performance-based, but you also have to consider sort of how the governing body wants to run its sport. And oftentimes they're very resistant to change.
The design of the football was actually different with the collegiate ball and the NFL ball. The NFL ball is made more to pass. The collegiate ball is a little fatter in the center, and isn't quite as easy to pass from what I understand. But the NFL ball was designed to throw, and so it's, I think, a little more aerodynamic than probably the collegiate ball is. It does change the kicking, yeah. And then they changed the rules because the kickers were bringing out the softballs, which you get more compression when you kick. And Todd can talk about this more, but with the impact, you get more compression, you get greater distance and greater control. So now they make them kick it with a fresh ball, and it makes it much more difficult.
An interesting thing. A gentleman, he's a mechanical engineer, and he took the question of equipment, and what he did is he put together a football uniform that would prevent injuries, and it had a large number of changes. And he took it to the NFL Players Association and said, "Look, I can cut down on injuries significantly if we move to this new uniform." Now, it was somewhat radical looking, and they voted it down because the players said that it didn't make them look sexy. And they wanted to look sexy out on that football field. That was very important. So it came down to the sexiness level, and apparently it made their derrieres were not as prominent in their uniform. I know. What are you going to see? That's keeping it clean here. So there's all sorts of factors that go into the development of equipment. One of the interesting things that happened in the history of sports was the development of rubber. It changed the sports outlook hugely. Basketball became, we could bounce the ball, and tennis balls, and development of a number of sports that were no longer in existence before the development of rubber, which also helped in a lot of the uniforms and equipment.